All right, it is Sunday, the weekend of May 5th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Today it's just me since Price Only TA is out for his anniversary, but let's go ahead and take a look at the price action for the indexes last week, starting with the NQ. Man, was it a volatile week, but TA was still respected. On Monday, we kind of attempted to hold, pushing back up into this zone that we have kind of in this box. We were kind of talking about how if we're going to continue moving higher, we need to regain this area. Made sense. We come back up here and retest this. We were not able to push higher though. So into Tuesday, we had a pretty significant retracement and sell-off. And then obviously we had the FOMC, which we were talking about last week in the Discord, that this was going to be very volatile. It ended up, if I even come to the 1 hour, we can see this huge candle. Huge gain, attempting to test this level at 17,723, and then failing it, sending it back down to the origin, and actually holding that, and then continuing to move higher. We actually did see a new low formed and then regain the range, which is actually one of the VAL with long setups. So if you kind of were able to catch these retests down here after seeing that close, holding a higher low in here, that was a nice valid long, and you got paid for that. Continuation on Thursday and Friday, there were a bunch of nice catalysts with volatility there, and we are now at the high of the range, closing there on Friday, and actually seeing a bit of a push up into Sunday's afternoon session to sort of the 1871 level that we've been talking about for a while. So kind of what to expect going on from here. The big level is, if I pull up the daily, is still going to be that 1870-ish level. Like, that's where all the testing was to try to push higher, and that's where all the attempting to hold was before pushing lower. That is the major area to gain. We could see that come back down for a retest kind of anywhere in this range. I wouldn't be surprised to see a failure retest down here at 760 or something like that, and then continuing up to regain here or something like that. But very equally likely we could see this kind of gain, hold, and continue up higher. There is that higher range kind of around here at 18,150-ish, something like that. The big area, if we can regain that is the first step into potentially making regaining the uptrend and making a new all-time high on the NASDAQ. The failure that sent us down, that started this whole down leg, the downtrend, right here, 18,291, you could call it 18,300 if you want to, whatever. If we can regain this level, it will look like we're going to make a new all-time high. So the big thing to watch this week on the NQ is, can we regain 18,070, and can we confirm a hold above 18,291? If we can do those things, we should be putting in a new high. But what about the other scenario? We've talked about kind of this area also, like 1871. That's the maximum area, like the best risk to reward for shorts. If shorts are going to hold and send us down on another leg for a lower low, which I'm not calling for, I'm saying it is a possibility, this is the best risk to reward pretty much on the chart. So what could that look like? We could look like, if we are going to look like we're going to gain, but then we can't hold it, make a new low, and then fail to regain again, we could come back down. Or we could just never end up retesting this again. We could fail this level, come back down, retest, and then continue to fail these levels. But we will need to see that stair stepping at this point. We have done a lot of regaining. These kind of ideas were posted in the chat intra-week kind of before the FOMC started and ended up playing out, so we'll remove those for now. But it does look like, if we aren't going to continue to hold up here, if we lose down here at 17,723 again, we're starting to look like we might end up seeing further downside on this move. But we're just going to have to be, really kind of eyeballing the charts this week. We are getting into territory where it's probably going to get very volatile, because these these very volatile moves are going to be more likely at these key levels. So there's going to be a lot of fighting for positions here. Just kind of keep an eye on the areas that we need to gain for higher and the areas that we need to lose for shorts. So be patient, only take the good trades at the appropriate levels. A lot of the charts are going to look similar to that. Let's look at the ES today. Obviously going to be very similar look. This one actually a little bit more of a cleaner look. We've kind of done some gaining and holding and continuing to push higher here. It's not quite in the zone that we want to see regain, but we're close to it. So I would expect these areas to get tested this week. Big level. We have marked 5,196. Call it 5,200 if you want. If we can kind of push into this zone and regain this area on the ES, then we are going to start looking good for higher again as well. If similar to the NASDAQ, if we can come back down here at 5110 and fail that, and then hold it for lower, not regain it, we could end up seeing another leg down. But right now, we clearly have started making a series of higher highs, higher lows. So one of the things that I would be looking for is potentially seeing a regain up here, or a come back, test read back down here, and kind of making a higher high above here and pushing up. So a very similar look to the NQ. Not really too much point in discussing the different nuance. I mean, these zones are kind of marked out pretty clearly, and the price action is very similar. So we'll have to kind of see if that plays out similarly. The RTY looks a little bit different. So the level that we've kind of been talking about was 2020 and 2043. Both have been regained, so our bearish scenarios for lower are less likely to be playing out. So we'll just kind of remove them for now. Those IDs are currently invalidated. But we have regained 2043, and we actually are holding it, if you can look at that right there. So it looks like we're kind of getting this play out. So we kind of tested up here, that's a gain. We came back down here, we're holding it, and we continue moving higher. If we can regain 2080 and more importantly 2100, that's going to look like we're perfectly primed to make a new high on this leg. So above whatever that is, like 2170, should be a nice big move from there. Definitely something to look out for. If we can regain this zone, make a new high above there, we're kind of definitively above the area that we couldn't regain that sent us down on the short leg here, and definitively above the area that had held to produce all-time highs. So that would look like this scenario that we've been projecting for quite some time. Again, an attempt to make a new all-time high would start to look like it's playing out. So something to watch for there. The level that we would need to lose again to kind of invalidate all of those ideas would probably be losing 2020 again. So if we lose 2020 and we can, hold below and continue making new lows, we're starting to think about kind of giving up this whole regain here, and potentially making another low down here at maybe 1865. So something to keep in mind. If we do end up coming down here, all these levels are tested. So there would not be too much support on the way down. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But until those levels are lost, it does look like RTY had a nice solid regain this week. So we'll have to see what's going on further into the future here in the month of May. Looking at gold, a little bit choppier, a little bit less decisive. So on Monday we had just the huge sell-off along with the rest of the market. And the other, markets have kind of attempted to regain. We see no such regaining here, and you could start to see the beginning of a little bit of a regain on the 1 hour. We've ended up kind of closing above this range, so that's nice. That's the first start to potentially doing that. But if we go back to the 4 hour, the level that we still need to gain is coming back all the way up here to 2342. If we can regain this, then we can attempt to kind of take out these previous lower highs and start regaining. Until we actually regain this zone, we kind of really have to take out this lower high here that failed, this 2350. Until we regain that area, it's still going to look like lower, right? We're continuing to make lows. Just because we're regaining on lower time frames doesn't really change the trend yet. So we would have to kind of regain above 2350 to kind of really look like we're regaining. But we've kind of honed in on this for weeks now. If we do end up coming back down here to 2200-ish, that's not long-term bearish at all. It'll probably cause us to consolidate for a few months, but the overall trend on the daily is certainly still higher. I mean, we just made a new all-time high, so any downside is in the context of, unless 2200 is lost, and even really 2072, I mean, that would just be retracements on even higher time frames, right? So we can come all the way down here and kind of retest the origin of this move and still look good for higher. If we start to lose some lower levels, that would look a lot spookier. So we don't really want to lose 2072, 2055 maybe, but any downward context on gold, unless those levels are lost, are going to look more like just setting up for a higher low. So keep that in mind, and definitely watch 2342 on gold if you're looking to capture some of this downside if that ends up happening. The Dow, kind of similar to the ES, maybe not quite at the level that we need to gain. Like the NQ is kind of pushed right up, pinned up right against the level it needs to gain. Just like the S&P, this one needs a little bit more room to go. Needs to regain 39,112, and then ideally also kind of regaining the range that failed to send us down. That would be a more definitive look. Until these areas are regained, we can't say the higher time frame long trend has been regained. These are kind of the points where you're going to get the maximum chance of failing and sending it down for the highest risk to reward on a short. Because if we do make a new low or come back to the lows, these are going to be the areas that end up offering you the best trade for that. So keep an eye on those levels. It's around 39,100 or 39,300-ish, a little bit above that. So, if we can keep stair-stepping up and gaining and holding, we can start to take those out and start to consider talking about a new all-time high again. It would look really likely that we'd be making a new all-time high if we can take out 39,300. So keep that area on your chart. Starting to talking about more definitive bearish looks, we mentioned last time that we really didn't want to see 80.66 lost. I think we called it 80.50, but yeah, you can see that we really pushed down there to make a new low on the trend there. We really tried to hold it and then just sold off on Wednesday, right after the Fed meetings. The Fed spoke and dumped it down. So that is a definitive loss on the 4-hour of the uptrend on oil. And also on the daily chart, right, we've kind of attempted to hold it there, send down, and now we're on a new low below the previous low that we'd held to send us to the high. So that is now a downtrend. To be clear, the longer time frame is actually holding kind of at what I would say is kind of the major zone that we need to see held on the weekly chart. This is kind of what pumped us to send us up. So around 77.62. If we can hold that, then we can, on the weekly, still look good for higher. However, it is good to keep that in the context of we have lost the uptrend on the on the lower time frames, the daily and the 4-hour definitive losses. So in order to regain these, we need to regain the area that confirmed the failure, which is going to be back up here. Like this area was the last one that attempted to hold, that sent us down. So 81.20, we need to regain 81.20 to continue moving higher on oil. We could just consolidate here for a while if we're not going to see lower than this, and just kind of move sideways until we can try to regain that, or we can continue making a new lows and potentially lose this uptrend that we've been calling for a while. It's all, we have to be prepared to be wrong as traders. We're just speaking to probabilities, but that is kind of what we're looking at. If we can regain this area up here at 81.20, we can start talking about longs being back on the table. If not, we're looking for lower, so keep that in mind. And in fact, I'll even kind of draw what we're looking for. We need to see something like this happen. So that's what we see on oil for now. The dollar, another kind of big loss. We attempted to push higher, and then ended up just dumping it and losing all the levels really fast. So on Wednesday, during the day, we ended up before Wednesday, I should say, we ended up kind of really pushing higher to a new high. That really looked good. Like our projection was looking really good for working out. And then the Feds, the day of, ended up kind of injecting so much negative pressure into the dollar, when the Feds were speaking and putting out their press conference, that it just tanked it through all these levels. We kind of talked about Thursday, like, we'll probably end up seeing this play out. That's exactly what happened. It went a bit lower than we thought, but we have kind of closed back in the upper range. Now, that doesn't mean that we're definitely looking for longs on the dollar right now. We still have to come back and kind of reclaim this range and continue to move higher in order for that to look good. But we were kind of saying, well, 104.8, 104.6, we could see these levels tested before moving higher, and that's what we got. But we do still need to do some regaining in order to, we'll pop this away now, in order to continue to see the dollar move up. It just looks like another higher low, but it is losing this area that tried to hold, so now we have to regain that to continue higher. That's kind of what we're looking for going into this week. But the good news really helped the banks. So, you know, KRE, we've been saying if we're going to see a regain, it's going to look like this. They actually ended up pushing higher, like we talked about last week, and we actually did this week end up holding a higher low and just pumping from here, just totally pumping. What I want to see, I think Price Only TA was saying that he wanted to see this area regain to potentially see new highs. I want to see a little bit more than that. This is great if we can hold it. It looks like we might. We could come back down, you know, here, just test that. The previous area that attempted to hold, we could hold that and continue moving higher. I want to see 50, 50 hold. If we can gain this and hold it and continue higher, I think that we're going to regain and finally go back up to 56, like we've been calling for, 56.50, which is kind of the origin of the dump when everything got really scary back in 23. I think that if we can regain 50.50, we're going to start seeing a real big try for regaining everything that was lost there on the regional banks. So it's kind of what I'm looking for. I would like to see it, you know, kind of hold down here or just keep pushing and then hold above and kind of hold this level and continue higher. That's kind of what I think that would look like to me. But other than that, there's really nothing else to say. I think this is just going to be a real volatile time. I wouldn't be surprised to see some big regains. And if we are going to end up moving lower, it could be real quick reversals. But you just got to look at the charts. If that doesn't end up playing out and this, you know, maybe that was it. Maybe this couple of weeks of downside ended up being the whole correction that everyone was kind of calling for. But we're just going to look at the TA. We're just going to look at the charts, do what the charts tell us to do. So we're not going to worry about all that noise. But there's really nothing else to say. Kind of a wild week, and we'll have to see if there's continued volatility going forward. Thanks again for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. We'll see you next week.